The boardroom fell silent as the last slide clicked off. 47-year-old Elena Voss stood at the head of the table in a faded navy coverall, grease still under her nails. The venture firm's lead partner, Marcus Hale, leaned back in his Brioni suit, Patek Philippe flashing under the lights. He looked her over once and said, "This isn't a garage sale, Ms. Voss. Your little repair shop has no place at this table. Pack your toolkit and go." She had no idea the woman he'd just dismissed was the only reason his entire portfolio still existed. What exactly was hiding under that faded coverall? Elena Voss had spent the last 4 years raising her son alone after her husband's accident. By day, she ran a small diagnostic shop on the edge of Detroit, fixing what the dealerships gave up on. Most nights, she sat at the kitchen table with a dog-eared service manual and a half-cold cup of coffee, the smell of solder still on her fingers. No one knew she had once been lead calibration engineer at Koenigsegg in Sweden. 287 prototype runs. The original author of the torque vectoring code that still lived in every car they sold. Marcus Hale ran a $2 billion mobility fund out of a glass tower on Woodward Avenue. His Italian loafers never touched anything dirtier than polished marble. He had spent the last 8 weeks trying to force a hostile takeover of a rival electric supercar startup. The one problem no one could solve was a persistent stability fault that kept triggering during high-speed cornering. 6 engineering firms, $412,000. 0 answers. On a wet Tuesday in October, Elena arrived at the rival's secure test track to drop off a crate of sensors. She took a wrong turn at the service gate. Her battered Ford Transit blocked the private ramp. Security waved her through rather than cause a scene. She rolled down into the underground dyno bay just as Marcus Hale stormed in, barking at his team. The prototype sat under bright halogens, silent and useless. A yellow diagnostic sheet lay on a bench. The words intermittent grounding cascade circled in red. Elena stopped. She recognized the exact symptom. It was her signature fault, the one she had quietly fixed in the final revision before she left Sweden. Marcus noticed the woman in the oil-stained coverall. He crossed his arms. "You're not authorized to be down here. Security will escort you out." She could have walked away. Instead, she asked one question. "Has anyone pulled the secondary ECU harness behind the right rear rocker?" The room went still. Marcus gave a tight, condescending laugh. "Lady, we've had German PhDs in here for weeks. Just take your box and leave." But one of the younger engineers slid her a floor jack anyway. 14 minutes. That was all it took. Elena slid under the carbon tub, ratchet clicking softly in the echo of the bay. The factory had used the wrong torque spec on a revision that was never added to the public manuals. She tightened the lug to 72 Newton meters, rerouted a single shield, and wiped her hands on the same faded coverall. The prototype fired on the first crank. The W8 howl filled the concrete chamber like a living thing. Marcus Hale stood frozen, Italian shoes planted on the polished floor, watching the woman he had just publicly humiliated bring $400 million of stalled development back to life in front of his entire staff. 3 weeks later, the boardroom reconvened. This time Elena sat at the head of the table in the same coverall. She had quietly bought the rival startup weeks earlier using patents she had never cashed out. The company was hers. Marcus Hale's fund was now a minority shareholder with no voting rights. He approached her afterward in the empty hallway, voice low. "I was arrogant. I saw the coveralls and assumed I knew the story. I'm sorry." She said nothing. 2 days later, he stood in front of the full investment committee and repeated the apology on record. Elena still runs the little diagnostics shop 3 mornings a week. Her son, now 9, keeps a small brass torque wrench on a chain around his neck, the same one she used that day in the dyno bay. Some afternoons, Marcus stops by, sleeves rolled up, learning how to listen before he speaks. The wrench still smells faintly of Swedish winter steel and fresh brake cleaner. In the end, it was never about revenge. It was about remembering that the most valuable engines are often the quiet ones that never stopped running, even when the loudest voices insisted they were scrapped. Sometimes the debt is paid not with fury, but with a single perfect click of a ratchet in front of everyone who once looked away. And the road afterward feels a little less lonely when you finally let someone ride beside you.